A key part of the review was looking back at the first set of recommendations and the action plan about progress. So this update report covers in detail the steps that have been taken responding to the initial 14 recommendations. And I can say that overall, progress has been made on many fronts, but there's still a lot of work to do. The good news is that not one child in Hackney has been subjected to an MTIP search, a strip search, since the Child Q report was published. And across London, there's been a 45% reduction in these searches. There's also been an improvement in the number of appropriate adults that are engaged, although there's still room for improvement here as well. The police have also got much better at how they record and present the data that they have on strip searching, and there's a much better level of scrutiny being applied. Some schemes have also been started to look at the best way to support young people when they're stopped and searched by the police. And the report makes some further recommendations about the law, about policy and guidance in place at schools and with the police. The report also covers an assessment of trust and confidence in policing in particular. And this is the beginning of a long journey, and there's much work to be done before trust and confidence can begin to be really rebuilt. But having recognised that it won't change overnight, there are real efforts being made, not least by the new borough commander, who is actively listening. And we're getting some really positive initial reports about how those listening exercises are paying off. But we've got to go beyond an individual officer at a specific time and place. We have to be able to address the system if we're ever going to make progress around trust and confidence. I recognise that the Metropolitan Police Service Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, has a tough job to do, and many of the children and young people I spoke to recognise that as well. And he's made a real commitment about making changes. But there is an issue, and the issue is about accepting that it's institutionally racist. And there's a real problem with that, because people think, well, institutional racism means that every officer within the police service to whom that label is applied is a racist. That just isn't true. What institutional racism, however, does mean is that we're recognising the process, the systems, the history, the incidents of the past, which all normalise and approach normalised behaviour. And it's a behaviour and its practices that alienate many young people, young black people in particular. So this is about recognising the system and where it is and what needs to change within that. The report also reflects on the size, the depth and breadth of the Metropolitan Police Service and the difficulty that there is in managing such a large organisation. And it's not for me to comment on that beyond to say that there can be a disconnect between local ownership and local accountability. And that's really important. Local people need to feel that they're being listened to, and they need to feel that when something goes wrong, they're able to access a person who is accountable for that. Local context is critically important. The report also looks at safer schools officers and the new protocol for Hackney schools. After the Child Q incident, there was a real pushback about police officers being in schools. Now, the truth is, I've heard some pretty bad examples about safer schools officers, but I've also heard some outstanding ones about individual officers who take the time to get to know the children and young people in the school. Safer schools officers that students, pupils have been able to name to me. They've been able to talk about who they are, the family they have, the interests they have. And these are safer school officers who've managed to humanise the relationship between themselves as representatives of the police and the school community that they support in a true safeguarding sense. So we've made a number of recommendations about how we can use the examples of some of these really excellent officers to develop the attitudes and skill sets that these roles really need. It's about the person. It's about the example that they set. They should be mentors to children and young people. They should provide pathways out of the criminal justice system rather than pathways into it. And we make a range of recommendations regarding that. In one of the meetings I attended, where there were many, many young people, I asked those who had been stopped and searched by the police to put their hands up. Nobody did, and I was surprised. So I asked the young black children in the room to put their hand up if they'd ever been searched in school. And every single hand went up. To be honest, I was surprised by that. I hadn't been expecting it. And this is one of those areas in the report that we have pivoted to so that we can take a closer look at how children feel in school, how they're treated. And of course, order, structure and discipline are critically important. But what I've learned from listening to the children and young people who go to school in Hackney, and many of them have recognised they get a fantastic education in really good schools, but some of them have reflected to me that yes, structure, order and discipline is important, but in the context of fairness. Is it fair? Is the school setting an example? Are they being consistent with what they do and when they do it and to whom they do it? And these are really critical issues, and they are addressed by a number of recommendations within the report.